So guys, we have a special guest, Josh Barnett, today here in Poland. Sir, welcome. And the first question, why Genesis?
Opportunity. The world is obviously shut down in various ways, and so the opportunity to go out and fight are very few and far between. In fact, there's really nothing in the way of events at all. No music, people not going to movies. Where I'm at in LA, you can't even sit inside a restaurant, so it's difficult to be able to work in something like fighting or any kind of entertainment when there's nowhere for you to actually be. So I reached out to all of my contacts around the world to see which place would open up first and have an opportunity to go out and fight. And that would also allow us to come over. And my friend attached to KSW said, "Oh, well, hey, we have something. Would you be interested?" And it's like, well, if it's a fight, then I'm interested. And plus, it's a opportunity to come to Poland for the first time and get to see a bunch of my friends and spend a little bit of time after the fight to see some sights. I've marked many cathedrals and museums and places to see, but Poland's a huge country, so there's a lot of them I'm not going to be able to check out.
So who came to you with an offer, and when did it start?
I think we were talking in all the way back in July. So, this has been in the works for a long time, maybe even a little sooner. But I deal with a guy named Alan Murphy.
Okay, so we know Alan quite well. Okay, and did you get the offer to fight with Marcin Różalski at the first? It was like they were looking for an opponent for him, or maybe this was like, Josh, we want to work with you and we will find you some good opponent in Poland.
I don't know exactly how it came to be that I was fighting Różal, but that was the opponent offered to me, and I said, yeah, sure, why not?
What did you know about Różal before this offer?
I knew that he was mainly a kickboxer for most of his career, and he kind of put size on to fight as an MMA heavyweight fighter. Not that he was small before, but also as you get older, you just are naturally heavier anyways, and maybe he thought being bigger would be beneficial for an MMA fighter. And I knew that he had not just dipped his toes into MMA, but he was serious about continuing to do it. So I thought, well, this guy's got a lot of experience. He clearly has no problem fighting whatever the rule set, whatever the ring, so it should be killer.
Do you think that your adventure with Genesis is just like for one fight, or maybe the contract is for more fights?
It really depends on Genesis. Well, it depends on how everything goes. I really hope that we get a lot of viewers to tune in to watch us fight. That being said, then if the company can make this a big success, then I see more potential fights in the future. Whether or not I'm involved, we'll see. But first things first, make this first one a success.
So Maciej Kawulski, the organizer of Genesis, is also connected and known because of KSW, that he's like a head of KSW. Do you think that they would be interested in having you also in KSW in MMA?
I'm sure that they would. I've spoken to them before in the past, and they have expressed interest. But it's not always so easy to make fights happen. But a lot of factors in there, whether or not Bellator would be okay with me fighting in KSW. But so far, I'm allowed and able to do this fight for Genesis. Mm-hmm. So I'll never say no.
So the contract with Bellator is valid still?
Yes.
Okay. And how long does it valid?
Enough.
Yeah. Okay, you cannot tell us. Okay. So your return to MMA is something real that could happen in the future?
Yes, for sure. Besides getting sick and having a problem with medicals, I've been trying to get in the ring. It's just been some terrible luck. But so far so good. Even though restrictions have increased here in Poland, we're still going to fight.
So we were supposed to see your debut in Bellator last year, at the end of the year. Then some health issues went down, and there was. Could you please tell us something about these issues?
I I had a group dinner the night before in Hawaii, and everything was fantastic. It felt like training was good, everything was going as it should be, and then I just wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm shivering and sweating, and I just was like, oh no, this is not good. And everything continued to increase from there on. I couldn't get back to sleep. Eventually, as soon as anything was open, Bellator, I had them take me to a emergency room, and it just wasn't anything to be done about it. Yeah, it was there was just no way to fight that night.
Okay, and what about after? I know that after this we had 3 or 4 months until the COVID and the pandemic and all this stuff. But were you in training? When did you come back to training after this situation?
As soon as I was healthy enough to get back in the gym, and even then starting slow and moving up, because my intention was to get right back in the ring. I spent all this time training and preparing, and so did my opponent, so I wanted to make sure to follow through with this. And, everything was going okay with the Mohegan Sun Commission. I'm an older fighter and everything, and so, they always want to look at different tests and what have you, and so everything seems fine, and then they just decide to change their mind, like 2 weeks out. So then the fight was canceled.
Did they tell you why?
I'm familiar with it, but everything was fine. Everything was discussed from the beginning and then canceled.
Okay.
So as what can happen anytime you deal with bureaucracies is, one person can say yes, and then another person can say no, and then the other person says, well, they said no, so we're done. And then they got a great replacement in Matt Mitrione for Ronnie Marks, but then the whole event got canceled. And so at the end of the day, we all were going to lose always, and it's really terrible. I feel bad for Ronnie and for Matt, even for everybody who tried to get together to make that fight card happen, only to have the pandemic cancel everything.
What does your training camp looks like during this pandemic and now during this whole months when you were familiar with this thought that you are going to fight for bare knuckles, only in bare knuckles formula, not in MMA?
Working with my boxing coach and just focusing on the conditioning needed for the fight and getting my rounds in. It's easier to train for boxing than for MMA, but it's still hard.
Is it hard to forget about all those techniques that you can use in MMA cage, about wrestling, grappling, and so on? How do you prepare yourself just doing boxing and not trying to take down your opponent?
I've been doing this for so long. I've actually boxed for many years too, so it's not really an issue. But I'm always aware of the fact that there are so many more openings and opportunities in an MMA fight. I always look at boxing as being 1/3 of a fight, and kickboxing being maybe half of a fight, and then MMA being a complete fight. So this is a restriction in terms of being able to fight, but it's interesting. And to my understanding, we're allowed to clinch and punch and elbow as well. So maybe especially for us big guys, as we get tired, we'll be able to keep working.
How do you visualize your fight with Różal?
Well, it's almost guaranteed to be bloody, but I feel really confident. I feel like as much as he has had a striking background, he was a kickboxer with a very specific style built all around his left leg. This is boxing. Different story altogether. And I feel like I understand his game very well, and I think I'll be able to put my punches inside all the gaps, and I just think I'll be too fast for him.
Do you think that you are prepared to fight 3, 4, 5 rounds? Don't know also how many rounds do you will fight?
The fight will be 3 rounds. Okay. So yeah, even me, us old guys will be able to go out there no problem and fight.
That's why I'm asking, because once you are both after 40, so you are 43 and Różal is 42.
Gonna be 43.
Yeah. Gonna be. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
We're basically the same age.
Yeah.
And but both me and Różal have a lot of experience, so it's interesting as I will in the gym at times show younger fighters that I know are in there, let's say, training all the time and getting ready for fights, and I'm not, let's say, and I can still get in there and spar them and wear them out and go, it's about fighting smarter. Not I know what my limitations are right now in terms of conditioning in those situations. And so I know how to force them to work so much harder than me and then spend all their energy. It's just like as you get older, you just get trickier.
How long do you plan to fight?
Until I don't. I really don't know when that day is going to come, but I know that it's much sooner than later. And so when things like Genesis come around, that I want to take them because these are the last. Every fight I have is one of the last ones until the end.
And still you are doing some interesting things outside of the cage. You have some movies on your account, and also you do your own organization, Josh Barnett Bloodsport. Could you tell us something more about this?
Well, we just had our third show last weekend, which was a great success. We got a lot of very positive feedback, and it was a killer show to watch. We had a main event of Chris Dickinson and John Moxley. Moxley being formerly Dean Ambrose of WWE, and now he is the AEW champion. He's the New Japan Pro Wrestling US Heavyweight champion. He was rated the #1 wrestler in professional wrestling by the Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So, I mean, he's big news, and he's wrestling on my show, which is great. But I've always wanted to enter into the realm of professional wrestling as a promoter as well as just as an athlete, because I want to show the philosophy behind professional wrestling that I was brought up with, from the people that trained me. And this is an ever-growing event. And so every event we try to improve in some way or another, and we're already looking towards our fourth one and trying to build the foundation for multiple events in the future.
Can we watch it in Poland also?
I bet you could. It's on the Fight TV app.
Fight, okay.
So I think that's generally global. So I don't think there would be any issue trying to watch it that way.
Nice. Okay, so we can prepare ourselves to your fourth event. Josh, one more thing from me. It's about the music, because we all know that you like metal and black metal, and we also know that one of your favorite bands, I can say, is Behemoth. Can you tell something more about your passionate about Behemoth?
Well, I like intense things. I like things that that are authentic, and Behemoth is intense and is an authentic expression. It's not just going to the shows, but they're friends of mine. I wear their pin on my jacket because they're my friends. And whether it was a music event, an art event, or even just having coffee and dinner and spending time together, I know who these people are, and so when I see their shows, I mean, I know how much goes into it. The music is incredible, and it's been on a progression from their early days of a more raw, stripped-down black metal sound to more of like a black and death metal element now. But and the theatrics and more the occult influences, and Nurgle spends time making sure that when he writes things, when he creates these programs, that they are that the source material is correct, that he doesn't do things halfway, and he really does care to present things in a true manner, so to speak. And it's good also because he understands that a lot of these concepts are just very old ways of humans and the way they navigate the earth.
You have very many fans here in Poland. What would you tell them so they could buy pay-per-view for Genesis?
Well, look, if you've seen me fight, you absolutely know that I bring it in the ring. Now, if you know anything about Różal, which according to all my social media, a lot of you seem to, then you know he too is a person that never backs down and always brings like the most straightforward, honorable fight. So between the two of us, I don't think you could have matched two better, more like-minded people. And the sparks are really going to fly. The blood will spill, but in battle, you're going to see perhaps what it looks like to watch two warriors meet and exchange ideas through fists.
Okay, thank you very much for this interview. It was an honor and pleasure. Have a great fight with Różal on next Saturday. Thank you.
No, thank you very much.